wanted so much to hear Joyce C, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hear the
Video.
recording of it.
Yes.
I'm just so grateful you're here, and thank you, Patty. It's been good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as many of you know, we have this wonderful woman in our midst who lives in Santa Cruz and makes that call over here to come to speak. And Patty, we have had you in our prayers for so many months for your healing. And just know that we are so glad to see you and so delighted that you're here. One of the things about Joyce is that I never know what Joyce is going to talk about, but that's not unusual because she doesn't either. But, I have seen her come up here with reams of material, and there she is with her, and never open it. And it is amazing when she starts talking. It's totally divinely inspired. She might write notes, but I think God has other ways of working through her, because she does such amazing work with her voice and her energy and her spirit. Please welcome the Reverend Joyce Brown.
Hey, woo! I like the way you have your stole fashioned. Yeah. Is that a square knot like at Girl Scouts?
Girl, are you serious? I never did the Girl Scouts.
Oh, I don't blame you.
They wouldn't let me in.
What did you do?
A thread.
Well, they didn't let God in either, so you're in good company.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Joyce C.
I
Brown.
mentioned something that didn't get said
What?
about what we have to eat. We've got deviled eggs.
No.
Yeah. Woo.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Jan.
I am always so delighted when I see those.
Okay, so I've missed y'all.
Hey!
I did. And I know you felt it because we felt your prayers.
How's Patty?
And it was an
okay?
amazing journey for us to have taken that road we did not quite 5 months ago. About 5 months ago, and it was an amazing journey that was in the making. But it was slow. So that's another thread. When I reclaimed my name and put the C back, that was another thread. You see, life is full of threads. So every time you change a thread, you change your life. Every time you let go of a thread, you change your life. So if you're full of anger and you look for peace, you change your life. If you decide that the country, like the earth, isn't racist, look at the thread. You see, what I call Mother Earth, this place on which we build things and stand and grow and eat our food and do all kinds of fun stuff, is not bigoted, sexist, racist, against you living your life with whomever you choose. Is not. So, what is? All these threads. And these threads are usually based on fear. And then fear leads to violence. Because those who are afraid of something inside of them. It's not me. It's not you in the room. It's not someone in a building. It's not someone going to work. It's not someone sitting in a cafe. They have done nothing. But someone that has a thread that won't let go of them. And sometimes these threads are motivated by what they watch, what they read, who they know. They have threads also that says, oh, we can do something about this. What we're going to do is go and do this act. And you do an act of violence. You want to change your thread? Change yourself first. You have no right to tell me who I can be and who I cannot be. My name is Joyce C. Brown. You can't take that away from me. You can take my life, but you cannot take my name. And this is what's so very important. Take a look at all the amazing people whose lives are lost You didn't take their names. What you did is you brought your fear to them. People are afraid of everything they do not understand. So when I am in my late 20s, I read a report, I think it was by the Warren Commission on racism and things like this. Interesting book. Big enough to prop up an elephant, that book. In it, they came up with a simple discovery. That when you can point out to people who are practicing some form of bigotry, violence, hate, all of that, against another group or groups, that you can show them that all the stereotypes they're using against those individuals are not true. That the individuals in those groups will choose to keep doing what they're doing so that they can be in the company of those who think like them. Look at that. Now that came out in the 70s. 70s. So this is not about 2019. It's not about last year. It's not going to be about 2020. And if we're around 2030, and for those of you who are around, just remember, it's the same thing. When you open your newspaper every day to look at it, I do my best not to do that. What you're looking at is threads that are ongoing. They haven't changed since the 60s, when things started to really go wild. Well, okay, could have been the 50s, but I know about the 60s. I also know about an amazing thread that took place in 1962. I've spoken of it before, but it's important for me to tell you about it today because it will tie into where this will go. Our mother came out to Santa Barbara, California in 1962 for the month of August. An amazing thread. Left me at home with my father and my siblings that were there, and I became the one who took care of the family. I cooked, I cleaned, I scrubbed, and I also worked the fields. I worked 7 days. If that had been 9, I'd have been doing that too. I did everything that a grown woman would do at the age of 12 because I had been trained to do it. It wasn't a question of could I. The question is, I know I can. When our mother came back from Santa Barbara, California, visiting 5 of her children there, she made an announcement. Well, she did stuff like that. She said, "We're leaving." I myself was very excited.
You haven't told people where you were living.
Oh, pardon me there. We were living in a place outside of a town called Clarksdale, Mississippi. Delta, cotton, corn, soybeans. We had, where we were living, old mansions that they had moved out of and let them fall down. Thought I'd tell you that. Out behind that old mansion lived an older black woman who lived in a thing.
Lean-to or?
Made out of tin and stuff. She had a fire in the front yard that she cooked on with a pot. She had chickens. And that is where she had lived all her life. So when that family left their mansion, their plantation house, they left her there. And they moved to their modern brick house with all the amenities. We used to go by there working in the fields, and she'd tell us children, she called us chillin' actually, "Y'all get some of them pecans now, you hear?" And we say, "Yes, ma'am." In Mississippi, there was a law that said if a black man was found walking down the road with 5 pecans in his pocket, he got 5 years in jail. Y'all call them pecans.
Oh, thank you.
Them things, I don't know, pecans, see, we always thought that was something you peed in. So we didn't have, pecans, I don't know, pecans. Because they're pecans, but we call them a pecan. But there are other parts of Mississippi and down in there they pronounce it altogether different again. Where I grew up, as we had puck-ons, and we would go and get some puck-ons because it was okay. She had given us permission. Unless somebody gave you permission, you didn't pick up anything that belonged to the white plantation owner. Look at that thread. You're not living there, you own the land, but you own the food, and you can't pick it up to eat it unless somebody tells you you can. Look at the thread on that. So anyway, we moved to Santa Barbara, California, into one heck of a thread. We moved into a whole different kind of bigotry, racism, you name it. But it was all under disguise, like everything is wonderful here. My mother couldn't get a job as a professional cook. Now y'all call them chefs. At the UC of Santa Barbara because she knew what she was doing and they didn't want to pay her a salary. Look at that thread. My father could no longer work. They said he was too old. Look at that thread. My brothers got jobs the best they could. Most of them had not finished high school, so they worked for sanitation and things like that. But they worked, and they made more than $1 a day. Look at that thread. I myself was trying to figure it all out because this was weird stuff. All these threads were beginning to unfold in a way that said, when you leave where you are, you must be prepared to change. So I went from being a worker on a plantation to living in Santa Barbara, California, where they had the same stuff. They just called it a different name. They had all the rules, where you could live, what you could do, where you shop, and where you could go to school. And if you went to school, only so many of your kind could go. Look at that thread. You see, what a thread does, it helps to define who you are. So I choose my own thread. Now, if you let someone else choose your thread for you, you become a criminal. You become someone who is not employable, not worthy. You become someone who has to work twice as hard as someone else to make less money to prove that you deserve the job. Look at that thread. That's still going on. We have been given a whole bunch of stuff. Thank you. I was checking. We have been given a whole bunch of stuff about all the changes. And there are changes. I do not deny there are changes. But we must remember that when someone who is making the rules tell you you have changed, you really need to take a good look at that. Look at that particular thread. The same thread tells you every day when you open your paper and you look at your TV, you turn on your computer, you mess with your phone. There are these threads telling you who you are, what you can be, what you ought to do, and when you are to do it. Every day. Every day you follow these threads because you gotta have it. You gotta have that new phone. You gotta have that big screen. You gotta have that new car. Have you paid for the other one? No, but I need a new one. Why? Somebody told you you needed this one because it's got more stuff. It's got more stuff. I got into a car and I said, good heavens. It's like this much stuff. You're supposed to know what to do with all this stuff. It's a car. Should it not just do some basic stuff? But I said, this got more stuff than the airplanes have.
Right. You're gonna be a pilot.
The pilots, I mean, seriously. And I'm thinking, when are you driving or when are you messing with your stuff?
Right.
Look at the threads. The confusion, distraction, getting you going in a direction that is away from you paying attention to you. So the point is, when you pay attention to you, you change your life. When you decide to take a move, and you want to go from Mississippi to Santa Barbara, you're going to change. You change, even though you're looking at stuff that is camouflaged. When you're listening and hearing people make fun of people and call them names, the indigenous people who own this state cannot live in it. What kind of threat is that?
It's wrong.
Yes, but it is considered okay. After all, I own it now. I can prove it. I have documents. My family came here and got this land. Well, who was here before? What are the threads that got cut? Not just cut, but annihilated and put into isolated places. We're talking threads. We all grow up with something. Some people grow up with more than others. But you do. You have a thread. In your family, someone will make a comment about someone. You don't even believe in that stuff. And you turn around and you look at them, you're thinking, who is this saying this? I can remember one of my sisters being very angry with some of the women she worked with because of the things that they were doing, and they were not paying attention to her, and she was the boss. She was the lead. And one day she heard them all speaking Spanish. What they didn't know is my sister understood Spanish. My sister understood and spoke bits and pieces of lots of languages because she was very good at it. For whatever reason, she could. So they are trashing my sister in Spanish. So my sister called me on the phone. And she would call me at these moments, and she wanted to know. She said, well, Joyce. I said, yes. She said, what you make of this? I said, well, it depends on what you want to do about it. Well, she wanted to get them all fired because she could. She was angry and hurt because she was a very fair woman, very just. And so I said, well, why don't you talk to your lead and let him know that if someone has something to say to you or anything at all, they have to speak to you in English if they don't like what you're doing, because it was an English-speaking position. And I said, let them know they have to speak English when they're in the work situation and they're communicating with you. But let them know you understood what they said. She said, I can do that. She let me know what happened. I said, well, what happened? She says, they were totally shocked and embarrassed. I said, and how do you feel? She says, I feel okay. So these three women kept their job because they needed their job living in Santa Barbara, California. My sister got a situation that worked for her so that the individual will know that you have to communicate with her in English because you were hired to communicate on this job because you were English speaking. Because that was the company policy. It was an interesting thing. Now you say, well, what about that? Are you imposing something? Are you putting a threat on someone? Yes and no. You want the job, you have to do some of the things that the thread says it's for you to do to keep the job. But you're also having to learn to respect someone else who is respecting you, who could have cost you your job and did not. We have to learn how to work together. When we start doing name calling and talking about people and acting as if that person isn't standing there, or they're standing there but you think they don't understand you, look kind of mess we're doing. You know how many times I've had people ask me, where you from? I always find that interesting. I say America. I'm going to do Earth next time. I say America. And I say, where you from? It's amazing. People don't know what to do. when you ask the question.
Yeah.
I said, well then, this conversation is done. I am not being rude. I am just standing my ground. Where are you from? Why? I had someone say to me, you think you're smart. Well, in fact, I thought I was, yeah. I'd managed to live this long in this system. You know, and feel good about still being here and all that kind of stuff, right? And she said, you think you're smart? I said, well, yeah, I do. And I said, so what's your question? What's your statement? What are you asking me? What are you saying? This person didn't know what to do with me because that was supposed to cause me to feel insulted. What was happening is that particular person had a thread that said that she was better than me. Because she was white, I was black. We'll just call it what it is. I'll use these words. White folks and black folks. My father called, there were two kinds of folks, white folks and black folks. Everybody else was Irish and Italian. I never understood that. You get that? My father was an interesting fellow. And I used to look at him and I said, okay. That was my dad. I loved him dearly. If he said there was white folks, black folks, and Irish and Italian, that's what it was. Once in a while there was Chinese. He didn't get the rest of it out. We had lots of Chinese people in Mississippi, as well as Japanese, and a lot of blacks and Chinese and Japanese intermarried. And so there are a fair number of African Americans who say they're strictly African American who are part Japanese and Chinese in some of the southern states. I have a dear friend who's part Japanese. So, but my father narrowed it down. So when we begin to get clear about what our thread is, we can talk to anybody about anything and hold our own without feeling I've said something or acted in a way that is not okay. If you're going to come at me, you should be prepared that Joyce C is going to hold her ground. You really ought to be prepared for that. You don't have the right to come up on someone and say, I'm better than you, where you from? Of course, I did play along with that with a woman once and freaked her out. She wanted to trade places with me. Go with that thread. I looked at her. I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm missing something in this question. I said, what do you want to do? She says, well, well, you people are always complaining. I said, really? I said, oh, okay. And so she decided she would like to trade places. She would be black, I would be white. I thought that was interesting because I felt I was better at being white than she was going to be at being black. Because the statement is, and I put up with this, I have to work twice as hard than a white person does doing the same thing and going to school and work anything. I grew up with that and I discovered it and I experienced it. So when she said it to me, I said, well, okay then.
Easy street for you.
That was really easy. And I went at her. I said, well, what do you people want? I said, you got places to stay? You got welfare? We give you food? We give you money? You don't have to do anything? You lazy? Huh? You're wearing down the country? Why don't you just go back to where you come from? I took into it. I used every little nasty thread I could think of. And she almost cried. I had no pity. I had no compassion. I just let her know. I said, now you know what it's like. So before you go around telling people you know something, and we're always complaining, I said, you now tell me what it's like to be black. She looked at me and turned with her head down and walked away and never spoke to me again. Yay! Did I miss that thread? No. Was I supposed to feel bad?
Yes.
I did not. That's the whole point. What was I going to feel bad about? You see, a thread is about learning something. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. All of us in this room, we're at least one thread. Well, just one thread. Now, think about yourself as being two threads. Look at how many threads we got now. Okay, let's up it about. Let's say you got 5 threads, because why not? Woo! And all of these threads work for you. So is it your work? That's a thread. Family? It's a thread. You have a business? It's a thread. Your affiliations in any group you identify with? Threads. A country, a religion, a teacher, anything. These are threads. So in this room, there are lots of threads. We have 7.7 apparently billion people on earth. That's a lot of threads. Now figure each one of them have at least 5. And depending on where you live, you got 5,000. You have a thread for everything in your life that you can do. Where you go to work, what you eat, who you know, where you live. These are threads. Patty and I choose to live in Santa Cruz. We've talked about what would it be like for us to move someplace other than Santa Cruz, where we've made our home for like 37 years together, right? And it came to us. We are a mixed couple. Uh-oh. That's a thread, I'm here to tell you. Now, where are you going to go with that? Santa Cruz. Nobody down there really particularly seemed to care. Our neighbors on our street, nobody seemed to give a hoot. So, do you stay where you have a comfortable link in your life, where you know you can live comfortably, or do you try to move someplace else because you say, well, it'll be less money? But then you're moving into a place where you don't know anything about it at all. Just because the house costs less doesn't mean you're going into a place that will accept you. Look at the threads. Do you work with what you know? Or do you work with someone is telling you? I choose to work with what I know and what I discover. And I don't rush into it. I've known too many people who rushed into it and told me it was the biggest mistake they'd ever made. If you're going to do something and you want to follow your life, make a decision that it's your life you're following and not somebody down there, because you don't know what they're going through. So what a thread is how you choose to live. The person that you are keeps evolving. I'm no longer that little 12-year-old girl getting on a bus in Mississippi, Clarksdale, Mississippi. In the middle of the night, we did that steal away. We literally escaped in 1962. Think about that. People are still escaping in 2019 from the places they live. Look at that thread. It hasn't changed. And they have to escape because the people in power are saying, you can't leave because you either work for me, or you work for nothing, or you work for little. They are literally still being owned. But they don't call it slavery anymore. I'm sure they have some nice name for it. I cannot think of one. Look at the threads that we are associated with. And when you protest, what happens? You come together and you say, I'm doing a peaceful protest. But it doesn't always stay that way. Because someone else comes out and says, you don't have any right to do this. Go back to where you belong. Well, the question is, if we all left, who would be left here? I'm really serious. So if everybody in this room, unless you are a descendant of the Hispanic people in this country, if we all left, who would be left? Makes it interesting, doesn't it? See, it's easy to tell somebody to go back where you come from when you associate them with the place, especially in my case, Africa. Well, I don't know how to tell you this. I did not come from Africa. I came from Clarksdale, Mississippi. My father's and my mother's ancestors were direct descendants. They came in, brought in all kinds of stuff. So yes, I have a lineage back there, but I am an American.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I am.
Yes,
Okay? So if you tell me I have to leave, then I need to say to you, you will go with me then. Get your bag, I'll get my bag, and you can take your ride back to England, France, Germany. Where'd you come from? Ireland, Scotland, Greece, Italy. Where'd you come from? Russia? Where'd you come from? People don't get it. Yes.
Some of us would have to go in a whole bunch of different places at once.
Oh. Yeah, my family too. Some of me would be here and some of me would be there. I don't know how much stuff messing around in our tree. But the fact remains is that particular kind of thread is really so ridiculous. It's all centered on fear. If you take the equation of fear and you look at it as a link, the most amazing people are the people who work under the most difficult situations every day to provide for themselves and their families in the face of incredible adversity. And these individuals are constantly under some sort of false precepts about who they are, where they came from, and why they should not be here. And this is happening from individuals who are teenagers and in their 20s and 30s. But they have learned it from someone. So if you want to pay attention to threads that are around you, take a good look at your own family. See who's intermarried in your family. And then take a good look at your friends and who you know, where you work, all the people you associate with, and you'll find you're in company of some really fine people. And that we don't have anything to do with those negative threads that come at us. We did not create that. We did not create it at all. So what is a thread? A thread is you. And it's what you decide to be, how you decide to live, how you decide to conduct your life. And the strength it takes to be who you are in the midst of incredible scrutiny. That's what a thread is. It's not our constitutions. It's not all the laws that have been passed. Those are not threads. Those are rules. You're the thread. And we're the ones that can change those rules through how we relate to each other. Thank you. Oh, none of it?